And this workshop this morning, the objective is to talk about and discuss how to increase your average order. Okay. A lot of representatives sometimes can be all or nothing reps, right? Two big objectives. Number one is to increase your average order, and you don't want to be an all or nothing rep. When representatives, you've seen them sometimes, and you might even be this rep where it's, yeah, they want a homemaker set. Yeah, they want a galley. Yeah, they want two knives. They want a trimmer. And the best reps on the team before they elevate to like a CSP level or $1,000 average order, they're really between that $500 and $700 range. And a lot of that comes from customizing and working with your customers. Okay. So the first objective is to help increase your average order. Take some of those 200 to 400 CPOs up to 400 to 600, 700. And then the second objective is to help you feel like you're working with your customers. Have you ever been in a demo and you felt like you are fighting or going back and forth with your customer and you're not seeing eye to eye on this? So those are the two objectives to really help you with that. Okay. So there's a couple of tips for you, and then I'll show you how to do some of this as well. The first time you want to do this and you want to set this up is after the guarantee. Okay. So I'll pull up the demo myself so you can see that. And the phrase I like to use, and you can jot this down. Okay. The customer, like I said, wants to feel like you're working with them. And so we need to let them know that one, we're making a sale today, create that buying atmosphere. And then two, that you're going to do this with them and have them feel like they have a bit more control in the closing process. Okay. So after I cover the guarantee, before I start talking about the homemaker set, I just ask her, Zanai, can you role play this? I go, hey, Miss McClem, so do you feel like Cutco is a really good product?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, like I said, before we get into the sets and everything that Cutco has to offer, I do want to ask you a couple of questions to find out which set would be best for you. Okay, so I'll repeat that first part. So, Miss McClam, do you feel like Cutco is a good product?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no. Of course, you'll say yes. Before we get into the sets and everything else Cutco has to offer, I do want to ask you a few questions to find out which set would be best for you. Okay.
Okay.
Key part is this next line. So, Miss McClam, I don't want to sell you something that you don't need or use. I really want to make sure what you choose to get today is something that you and your family would love and use every single day and you would really enjoy. So, Miss McClam, I don't want to sell you something you don't need or use. I want to make sure that what you choose to get today is something that you'll really love and you'll really enjoy, and that you and your family would use it every single day.
All right.
That phrasing does a few things. One, the customer then feels more in control of what she's picking and what she's deciding on. Two, you start to handle the objection before it comes up of I wouldn't use this knife or two. And then third, customers who might have been, I like Cutco, but I'm not thinking about buying anything. That strong language tells them that you are intent on making a sale and intent on selling a what? You can have me intent on selling a what? Keyword. Selling a 10. You can have me. One more time.
Ace.
Yes, selling a set. Okay, selling a set. Your customer wants to know that it's our intention to make a sale and to sell a set. So, a couple of questions I ask. One, you want to give her multiple choice answers with this. You ever ask somebody an open-ended question and then they don't give you the answer that you wanted to hear? Right? So you want to pre-frame and basically tell them what you want them to say. So, Miss McClem, keep rolling with me. Would you say that you cook an average 1 to 2 nights a week, above average 2 to 3 nights a week, or a solid amount like 3 or 4 nights a week?
You say about a solid 3 or 4.
Okay, sweet. So you cook a little bit more than most people. And in her mind, she's now understanding and okay that she cooks more than most people do. Okay. Okay, second question is for you, Miss McClam. I know you mentioned a little earlier, just want to double check. Do you could you have to, like to, or a little bit of both? Like when you have time, you enjoy it a little more.
I enjoy it.
Okay, cool. And then when you entertain and when you have people over, do you set the table for like 10, 12, 16, or is it like 40, 50?
What's it like the first one?
Okay, like 10.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. So she at a minimum needs a signature set, 10 table knives. If they set like 16 or 20, that could be a homemaker set plus a flatware chest that gives you 20 table knives. She's at 40 or 50, she needs 2 to 3 flatware chests. Okay. So you want to frame their mind and how you approach the sets. Okay. And how they approach the sets. And I'll share some co-hosts so you can watch the waiting room for me as well. So if you don't have these pieces, by the way, you definitely want to get them. It's much easier to sell something that you have. Okay. So let me show you, for example, how to buy some Cutco samples. So this is an opportunity for you to fill out the rest of your Cutco at a discount. Okay. So this is on Vector Connect. You go to these 3 lines at the top. You go to All About Cutco and then buy Cutco samples. That's it. Now, a lot of these things you'll see that I haven't bought because I've won them through contests with the company or through my manager at the time. So you can buy ice cream scoops, can opener, transplanting trowel for garden tools. And by the way, there's you can only buy these once and you can buy them at a ridiculous discount. The transplanting towel for $9. Like that's ridiculous. I was talking to Amy about this and I was showing her and she was like, yeah, Ron, I've already done it. Like I got some cookware and I need to get some more. Okay. So at the very minimum, step one is fill out your homemaker set. Okay. It's a $200 investment and you'll make that back on your next presentation. The more Cutco you have to show, the more you'll sell. You can get it in Pearl or Classic. The specialty knives, Hardy Slicer, Vegetable Knife, Santoku, Boning Knife, and Cleaver. That's like the gourmet set, essentially. It'll help you sell more complete sets because the vegetable knife, the 7-inch Santoku, Cleaver, and Boning Knife, that's what comes in there. You have cookware. So the 1 quart saucepan that you can get, and then you have to have that one for $100 first. It teaches you how to use it, allows you to sell more cookware before you get the skillet and the fry pan. And then this is for business gifts, the logos and the engraving, by the way. You'd have to be over 25 grand in sales, 10K in sales for the completion set of cookware, but you can get the sample pan at whatever point. Okay. So set up a contest with your manager as well to get some of these pieces. Maybe you didn't win them in your fast start. Talk to them about how you can and set up a contest or a process to do so. So as we're going through the demo, let's say that I'm going through the tools with her and never refer to them as pieces. Also, never say the word pieces, they're tools or they're knives. Okay. Pieces gets them thinking in individuals, but their tools are knives. Okay. So, Zanai, as I'm going through, tell me you don't like the spatula. Okay. So of course, here's your trimmer. You know, you'd use this for your foods that are about the size of your fist. You can hold comfortably in your hand on the cutting board. So apples, oranges, lemons, limes. How do you see yourself using this one, you and your family?
Definitely see it on a lot of tomatoes and cucumbers.
Yeah, for sure. You know, you go to cut the tomato and it like smashes and juice gets everywhere. You lose everything in the tomato. Now, it's good for the versatility, but never for spreading or serving. So the wide, flexible double D edge allows you to cut, spread, and serve sandwiches, bagels, lasagna, cakes. How do you see yourself using this one?
I don't really see myself using the spreader.
Okay, cool. Now, a lot of customers do say that, you know, that they wouldn't use this tool, and that's totally fine. I do want to remind you, of course, that whatever you get today, you're going to have for the rest of your life. Could you see yourself ever using this?
Not really as much.
Okay, cool. No worries. Remember how I mentioned that I'm helping you find out what you'd enjoy most today in your set?
Hmm.
Can I show you the most popular option that people switch that tool out with?
Hmm.
So let me show you our cheese knife. Okay. Then I pull the cheese knife out of my kit or I search it up. In this instance, I would be on, I'm showing my screen like this. I'm on customer view. Okay. So I search the cheese knife and I wouldn't do this so she can see the price because we don't want to talk about pricing right there. So best option is to pull it out with you and show it to her or utilize some of the video content. Okay. I'll drop some videos in the WhatsApp on knives that you can show. So, Miss McClem, a lot of people do like to switch it out with the cheese knife. Do you ever cut anything that's like sticky, starchy, water-based potatoes, tomatoes, blocks of cheese, that type of thing?
Hmm.
Okay. So a lot of customers prefer to use that instead of the spatula spreader if they don't like it. So we can just slide that in the block through, it'll fit just fine.
Okay.
It's not really a question. You see that? You explain what it's used for, tell her that it's normal, and then how do you feel about that? Right? It's not really an option. Do your customers ever go through like a professional or a full training session to actually learn what knives are used for? Imagine they get a manual that comes with their knife set with another company, with their Wusthof, Hinkles, or Cuisinart. Do you think that they are even reading that manual that comes with it that might explain what to use the knives for? They have no idea. Customers and people don't get a kitchen consultant. That's what you are. You're a Cutco kitchen consultant. You're not a knife salesperson. You want to educate your customer on what makes the most sense in their kitchen. Miss McKim, you cut up a lot of potatoes. This cheese knife, everybody who cuts potatoes gets a cheese knife. It makes it so smooth. I got it for my mom and it was game changer for her. I promise we had like a potato in our meal probably for the next 2 weeks. But either way, it works really well. No, that's a joke. I'm not being serious. Either way, right? Sell the piece and how it makes sense. Tell me that you'll never use this slicer, by the way.
Mm.
So this is really good for your chopping, right? Your bell peppers, onions, things like that. But it's not used for any slicing, like raw, boneless meats or anything like that. So here's our slicer. It's really good for breads. The long double D edge makes it great for breads, cakes, and things like that. How do you see yourself and your family using this one?
I don't really see it being used that much, to be honest.
Okay, no worries. A lot of people feel that way too if they don't use that slicer that often. You mentioned that you cut raw meats. Is that right? Like turkey, chicken, things like that?
Hmm.
Okay. What a lot of customers like to do is actually use the boning knife. So they initially made it to debone things like pork loin and to cut fat off a steak and things like that. And so a lot of customers do appreciate using it like that. You can see how they're using it on the that chicken here. So we'll just take out that slicer and then put that in there for you. How's that?
Sounds good.
Cool. So it's not really a question, right? You're showing her what makes the most sense based off of these things that you've learned in rapport. Okay. You can ask questions to them while you're catching up. Yeah. So, I'm curious, what types of food do you, excuse me, what types of food do you cook? What types of food do you eat is the better question. Then you can tailor some of the knives that you're replacing it with as you go through. Cassie, I'll get to that. Thank you. That's a good question. Now, I want you to write this down. Your customers need to feel that what you're doing is normal and simple. Your customers need to feel that what you're doing is normal and simple. Okay. Write down that less is more. Less is more. It's a simple phrase. Hey, no problem. A lot of people say that. A lot of people feel just like you. Here's what people like to do instead. That's it. Your customer wants to feel that you're providing a solution for her. Okay. You're providing a solution. Imagine that you go to a car dealership and the customer says, "Yeah, I'm not super sold on having a vehicle this big, right? Let's say it's an SUV." Oh, no problem. A lot of customers feel just like that. That's actually why instead of getting the 4Runner, customers like the RAV4. You still get that SUV feel, but it's a little bit smaller. It's not a question. right? It's a conversation and you're directing her because you're the professional. When you go to pricing, just tell them it's a little bit more. Okay. If they ever ask, hey, Miss McClem, don't sweat it. It's only a couple dollars more. That's it. Okay. If you already know, because this objection, they may not tell you that they wouldn't use a piece or they wouldn't use a knife, excuse me, before you get into the pricing. If they do, then just bump up the price of that homemaker set by 100, 150 bucks. Okay. If it's one or two knives, because you'll need to piece out everything anyways. What I mean by that is the value of the homemaker set is 1900 if they bought everything individually. Okay. So it's 1664, but if they buy everything separately, it comes out to 1924, right? Now let's say that I'm customizing it and she doesn't want the spatula and she didn't want that slicer. Replace it with the cheese knife and boning knife. Okay. So instead of it being 1664, it's now 1927. Bonus out that sharpener, bonus out the cutting board, and it comes out to 1824. So 1664 plus 150, you're looking at about 1800 bucks. There you go. Okay. So I like to do anywhere from 150 to 200 bucks more. And that way you handle it early. If it comes up after you ask for the order, you give them that 1664. And by the way, prices are going up beginning of February. So if you haven't leveraged that when you're closing, I do recommend that you start. If they mention that after you've asked for the order and you give them the price that they wouldn't use a piece or two when you customize, just tell them it's a couple dollars more a month. Okay. Okay. We can totally switch out that spatula spreader, Miss McClem, for that cheese knife. It would only be $5, $6 more a month. That's it. Because a homemaker going from 337 to 368, that's a $30 swing. Two knives that you're switching out, cool. That's gonna be another 20, 30 bucks a month. It's like running to Chick-fil-A for lunch. Right? It's not a huge investment. Don't make it a big deal. Okay. Don't make it a big deal when you're talking these things. Just act like you know what you're saying. And one of the ways to know how to pitch what comes next or what would be a better option, one of them is to actually learn your product knowledge. Okay. As soon as you, and Tim Carr can relate to this and share, as soon as you take it seriously and you start to actually learn the knives that you can, and you learn your products, that's when your average order starts to increase. Because if you only know the pieces in the homemaker that you are telling them about, well, then you can never sell anything bigger. You're not going to sell a cheese knife, a Hardy slicer, Petit Tentoku, or a complete set if you don't know how to sell them and talk about the knives that come in them. Does that make sense? One other way to learn your product knowledge is, and to learn what you can switch things out with. This is on Vector Connect, but also Cutco orders. So look at the homemaker block. You then go to the second picture in the slide. Did you see how I found that? Okay, I'll go back one more. So you go to the shop feature, go to storage, the homemaker set, and you can do this with any of the block sets. Picture number 2, it shows a detailed breakdown of every single knife that can fit in the slot. Every single one. So if you ever hear often they wouldn't use a spatula spreader, cool, well, come to this block, and for the spatula spreader on the homemaker, that is E, or that's I, and look at the knives that can fit in there. And then just learn how to sell those knives. That way, when you get that objection, you already have something prepared to use, and you already have something ready to say. Helpful with that? This does work for the trays too, if you didn't know that was there. Now, Cassie, you mentioned the objection of, yeah, I really only use 1 or 2 knives. Now, typically, 2 things with that. Somebody typically only uses 1 or 2 knives because those are the best knives in their kitchen. Doesn't mean those are the only knives they have in their kitchen. And the best time to handle objection is, of course, before it comes up. And so after the guarantee, before you go into the sets, here's a phrase that I learned from Cody King. He has $1,000 average order on demos as a CSP. Excuse me, $1,000 average order on demos with and service calls with Cutco owners. So after the guarantee, when you get to the homemaker set, what he says, okay, before you go into the tools is one thing that I love about Cutco is that it's practical like everything else. You know, Miss Cassie, when you go to put a nail into the wall, I'm sure you enjoy having a hammer, right? Now, could you use a screwdriver? For sure. But the great thing about having a toolbox is that you'll have the right tool for the right job when you need it, even if you don't need it every day. And that's why people love sets of Cutco. So that way you get that objection of, yeah, I only use 2 or 3 knives. Totally get it. Those are probably the best knives in your kitchen. And Miss Cassie, we're not talking about something that you're only going to use for the next year. We're talking about knives that you would use for the rest of your life. So totally understandable if the homemaker set is too many pieces for you. We have a lot of other options that make sense for customers just like you that only use a couple of knives. I'd like to find you something that makes the most sense for you. How's that sound? Cool. Now she's open and understands why we're showing smaller sets. When you handle objections, it's about psychology. Your customer needs to know you're on their side and why you're going to the next option. If your customer says, yeah, I wouldn't use all those knives, okay, totally understand. Let me show you the galley set. You didn't really tell them why you're showing the galley set. The objection is something that you can focus on when you're dropping down. Okay. How many of you know what love languages are? Okay. So, love languages, if you didn't know, is how people receive love the best. Okay. So let's say that you personally, your love language number one is receiving gifts. There's five, but let's say your number one is receiving gifts. Well, that means your partner, whoever that you are in a relationship with, mom, family, romantic, the best way for them to show you that they care about you is by giving you gifts. When you're dropping down, if somebody tells you, yeah, I just wouldn't use all those pieces, well, then that's what you want to focus on with every single new option that you show.